صلوات. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس صدق الله العظيم. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Those who have joined us online, and we are anticipating few people on site as well uh, who signed up. So we have Shahadat program tonight for the Shahadat of Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So before we continue with the program, I will like to invite Brother Pervez for the recitation for some of the poetry. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
صلوات. زہرا کی صدا تھی میرا جعفر نہیں رہا، ہے چھٹا وہ دین کا رہبر نہیں رہا، آفاق پہ ہے چھائی گھٹا رنجو علم کی، آفاق پہ ہے چھائی گھٹا رنجو علم کی، زہرا کا ہے مائے منور نہیں رہا، زہرا کی صدا تھی میرا جعفر نہیں رہا، دنیا سے آج جعفر صادق گزر گئے، دنیا سے آج جعفر صادق گزر گئے، سایہ بھی اب امام کا سر پر نہیں رہا، زہرا کی صدا تھی میرا جعفر نہیں رہا، روتے ہیں آج اہل مدینہ یہ کر کے بین، روتے ہیں آج اہل مدینہ یہ کر کے بین، قبر رسول حق کا مجاور نہیں رہا، زہرا کی صدا تھی میرا جعفر نہیں رہا، امت کو جس نے علم کے چشمے عطا کیے، امت کو جس نے علم کے چشمے عطا کیے، وہ آسمان علم کا خاور نہیں رہا، زہرا کی صدا تھی میرا جعفر نہیں رہا، زہر بگا سے کر دیا مولا کو جب شہید زہر وغا سے کر دیا، مولا کو جب شہید ہے شور آج دین کا محور نہیں رہا، زہرا کی صدا تھی میرا جعفر نہیں رہا، بیواؤں کا غم گسار یتیموں کا دستگیر، بیواؤں کا غم گسار یتیموں کا دستگیر، وہ بے کسوں کا مونس و یاور نہیں رہا، زہرا کی صدا تھی میرا جعفر نہیں رہا، کاظم اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ امام کا، کاظم اٹھا رہے ہیں جنازہ امام کا، افسوس آج دین کا رہبر نہیں رہا، رہرا کی صدا تھی میرا جعفر نہیں رہا، شکر خدا ہی لب پہ رہا جس کے ہر گھڑی، شکر خدا ہی لب پہ رہا جس کے ہر گھڑی، ایسا شفیع صابر و شاکر نہیں رہا، زہرا کی صدا تھی میرا جعفر نہیں رہا، ہے چھٹا وہ دین کا رہبر نہیں رہا، صلوات۔
Thank you so much, Pervez Uncle, for the beautiful poetry recitation. Inshallah, we'll move on with our program for the Shahadat of Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. I will invite Sheikh Jafar Muhibullah for the speech. Please recite a salawat.
صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Again, salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, before we begin, there's a request for Surah Fatiha for Marhum Mahbub Hassan Kazmi, son of Mansoor Hassan Kazmi. He was the late community member. This is his third year anniversary of his passing away. And likewise, I request a Surah Fatiha for the mother of one of our community members, Fatima Masuma Kumar Rajai, the daughter of Muhammad Kumar Rajai. This is the mother of our sister Marzia Faraji. So inshallah, please recite Surah Fatiha for both of these mu'mineen. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم به نستعين الحمد لله الذي جعل الحمد مفتاحا لذكري وسببا للمزيد من فضلي ودليلا على آلائه وعظمته ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أرواحنا له فداء أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وهل أتاك حديث موسى إذ رأى نارا فقال لأهلهم كثوا إني آنست نارا لعلي آتيكم منها بقبس أو أجد على النار هدى صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته جميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات. First and foremost, I give my condolences to each of you on the occasion which we have come to commemorate the Shahada martyrdom of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi afdalus salatu wassalam. As it is without doubt from not only our perspective of being followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salatu wassalam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi afdalus salatu wassalam is one of the most important individuals and personalities in Islamic history. Of course, after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we find Imam Sadiq as one of those individuals historically who ranks as one of the top individuals. Because when we read the history of Imam Sadiq alayhi wasalam, we will see that all schools of thought, all schools of Islamic thought, whether that be in theology, in law, jurisprudence, in philosophy, whatsoever, they go back to Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi wasalam. And this is because of the school that Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq he established alongside of his father, Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi wasalam. Because during their lifetime, they had this opportunity, kind of a golden opportunity that many of the other Imams alayhim wasalam did not have. Imam Sadiq alayhi wasalam, he had many students. In fact, when we look at even the students among Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, was the very individual who ended up martyring the Imam, Mansur al-Dawaniqi, that he was actually one of the students of Imam Sadiq. The sister also of Mansur al-Dawaniqi, who is also recorded as one of the first women engineers, also again learned from that maktab, that school of thought and the teachings of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi wassalam. So we see that Imam Sadiq is a very important personality in Islam. The Imam, he was born, when we look at his life, we see that he was born in the time of the Umayyad dynasty and martyred in the time of the Abbasid dynasty. The time that he was born, in that time period, that governorship under which he lived, we see that it was a governorship that we or is classified or is not classified rather as a governance or a government which is the most just government. Again, don't take our standard for it, but when we look at the books that have been written by even those who don't follow the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salam, they only classified the Khilafah of the first four Khulafa, again, the last of those first four Khulafa, who we say that is actually the first Khalifa, the Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, but nonetheless, the fourth Khalifa historically, in which everyone, or at least those who don't follow Ahlul Bayt, they classify that this is the only period of Khulafa ar-Rashideen. And the reason for which those who came after them were not classified as Rashideen, because even by their own standards, they say, oh, well, the governance and the government that was established thereafter was not the most just of governments. They had issues. And of course, among those was the issue with Yazid ibn Muawiyah, who murdered Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. But then also the other Imams were also martyred by the Umayyads, up until Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, who was martyred by the Abbasids, the first Imam to be martyred under the Abbasid Khilafah. So because there was no absolute, or there was no real semblance of justice at that time, they said, oh, well, this is not a period of the Rashideen. So there was a clear sign that the governance was not just or fair or upright. It was clear even from the standpoints of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salam, that we see that often on the Eid, as we mentioned before, on the Eid al-Fitr, especially on the Eid al-Fitr, that the Imams would be seen crying. And one of the reasons for which they were crying, they said, because the governance is not just. And of course, on Eid al-Fitr, what happens? That everyone takes out their zakat al-Fitr, and they knew that those individuals who are actually needing and deserving that zakat, not all of them will get the zakat. And this is a very interesting point, at least from a historical point and from a point of fiqh as well, is that sometimes when people begin to realize and embrace the Ahlul Bayt, even during the time of Imam Sadiq alayhi wasalam, where they were following a different school of thought, when they embraced the Ahlul Bayt, they would ask the Imam. One of the questions came to Imam Sadiq alayhi wasalam. They would ask him that, do we have to pray over? Do we have to pray over? Or do we have to remake our fast? Salawat. So they were asked, do we have to pray over? I think it's muted. Okay. So they were asked, do we have to pray over, or do we have to fast over? And so the Imam will say, no, the fast that you made, inshallah, Allah will accept. The prayers that you made, inshallah, Allah will accept. The Hajj you made, inshallah, Allah will accept it, as long as you did it according to what you believe was your obligation at that time. But then the Imam says, however, he says, the zakat that you pay then, he says, no, that has to be paid over. Again, because the haqq of that sustenance was not reaching those individuals that it should have been reaching. Salat, overlook it. Prayers, fasting, the Hajj, inshallah, they will be accepted. But that zakat, that haqqul mal, because it was not reaching those individuals that it should, the Imam says, no, you pay that over. You pay that over. If you paid it before, you pay it over. In any case, Imam Sadiq alayhi wasalam was living in such a time. Living in such a time that even if we take account of some of the events that were taking place during the lifespan of Imam Sadiq alayhi wasalam, that 65-year period, because he was 65 when he was martyred, we see that, again, that governance which was not among the righteous governments within the Muslim land. Also not one that Imam Sadiq or any of the Imam alayhim afusat wasalam said, okay, well, we'll replace it with the chaos. No, well, it was what it was. And their responsibility and duty was to try to ensure that the true message of the Quran and Islam was being put forth to people. But under that governance, we see that there was a vast expansion of territory, or where the areas that was considered to be the Muslim world, there was an expansion. Part of that expansion went into North Africa, where we see that the Algeria, or what is considered to be currently Algeria, came under the Muslim rule. And the Berbers, many of them have become Muslim. In fact, the wife of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi wasallam was among the Berbers as well. But again, not having that teachings from the Ahlul Bayt alayhi wasallam from the beginning, what do we find historically? That yes, that expansion, it went forth under the Abbasids, but then at one point there was revolts from the Berbers against the Abbasid. The Muslims were also involved during that time period, during that lifespan of Imam Sadiq alayhi wasallam, with trade on the Silk Road. Again, if many of our youngsters, they probably know the Silk Road trading that went between China and a lot of other places. So Muslims were also involved in the Silk Road trades during that time. In fact, even during a time, a plague, this is perhaps relevant to ourselves now, that there was a plague that had broken out during that time, across the Silk Road, went into different areas. So Imam Sadiq alayhi wasallam, for a period of his life, lived in that time where, yes, there's the threat of a plague, of people becoming ill. I mentioned before, almost a year ago, at the beginning of COVID, that even Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi wasallam, that he would make a dua in order to come out. That again, that plague was also very prevalent during the life of Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi wasallam. Also during the life of Imam Sadiq, perhaps one of the biggest historical events during that time was the overthrow of the Umayyad dynasty, where the Abbasids, they came up and they overthrew the Umayyads. And of course, at the beginning of their claim, they said that they were going to put the Ahlul Bayt alayhim wasallam back into their rightful place. Again, knowing that that haqq of governance, that right of governance belonged to the Ahlul Bayt, the Imams alayhim wasallam, Awlad Ali and Fatima alayhim wasallam. This was their claim, but of course, we saw where that claim went. Did not come to fruition. They had no true or real intentions to turn governance back over to the rightful leaders of the Ummah. Amidst all of this, and this is what I want to kind of speak about, amidst all of these events and these turmoils, the plague, everything that was going on, the governance which was not just, again, people within that society, again, the Muslim society, who were not receiving their proper due. They were not being treated justly or fairly. Again, the Imam Sadiq alayhi wasallam, just as all of the Imams, were working tirelessly in order to try to establish justice, to teach justice, to spread the true teachings of the Quran and Islam. That sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That sunnah of Rasulullah that was also embodied in the actions of Imam Ali, Amir al-Mu'mineen, alayhi wasallam, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, and all of our Imam. It is a responsibility that we also have today as well, to do our duty based on the Quran and based on the Sunnah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim wasallam. That we are living in a society that has, again, so many different challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. Same thing, Imam Sadiq faced it. The Ahlul Bayt faced it. Those who were walking in the footsteps of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salatu wassalam, they also faced that. To give one example, there were many of the children of the Ahlul Bayt, again, who were not among the Imams, that they saw the injustice, that they began to speak out against the injustice. They wanted to fight the injustice. Zayd, for example, Zayd, son of Imam Bakir alayhi salam, son of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, again, rose up during the lifetime of Imam Sadiq. There's a book that's written about the Shahadat among the Bani Hashim who rose up. And some of them, many of them, as Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, saw during his lifetime that they rose up. And he saw them martyred. And Imam Sadiq knew that they will be martyred. This one, like when Zayd, he came to Imam Sadiq and said that, look, I'm going to rise up against the oppressors, against the Bani Umayyad. And he asks Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, what do you think, my uncle? He said, well, you'll become martyred. Among those individuals who also rose up, Muhammad Nafsul Zakiyya, again, among the offsprings of Imam Hassan al-Mushtaba. Imam Muhammad Nafsul Zakiyya was also martyred during that time. Among the followers also Abu Hamza Thumali. Again, we may be familiar with his dua that is recited during the blessed month of Ramadan, Abu Hamza Thumali, that he narrates from Imam Zain al-Abidin, also martyred during the lifetime of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq. So people saw these difficulties. They wanted to do something. They wanted to try to offset the injustices and all of these things that were happening that were not correct within the Muslim world. And we too, as followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salatu wassalam, as we mentioned time and time again, we must again champion justice, stand against injustice and oppression, and also deal with all the other challenges in our lives. COVID, the plague, whatever that may be. We have to deal with these challenges. And it can take its toll on a person. Sometimes, and some people, they embody all of these difficulties and these stress in their life, and they think it's just me against the world. And there's no one else. What do I do? Am I the only one seeing this injustice? And am I the only one trying to speak out against this injustice? Am I the only one seeing that, well, hey, our next generation, they're having difficulties maintaining their deen, and what do we do? How do we cope with taking on so much? And this is one of the secrets that Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, he gives us. That yes, fulfill your duty, your responsibility, champion justice, again, try to instill the proper values in our youth, in our next generation, and meet all of the challenges that we are facing in the world. But one thing that will help us to face those challenges in the world, as Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, is that we have to have three things. Imam alayhi salam, he says, al-unsu fi thalath. He says, al-uns, which we can translate as companionship, or tranquility, or comfort. That comfort and tranquility, or something that will give a person a sense of ease. As the Prophet Musa, he states in those verses that we recited in the very beginning, verse 9 and 10 of Surah Taha, so chapter 20, verse 9 and 10, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he asks, "Hal ataka hadithu Musa?" Have you not read, or rather, have you not contemplated the story of Musa? إِذْ رَأَى نَارًا, that when he saw a fire, فَقَالَ لِأَهْلِهِ امْكُثُوا إِنِّي آنَسْتُ نَارًا. He told his family, he says, just wait for a second. Again, this is after the Prophet Musa, he left from the Prophet Shu'aib, going back to Egypt, again, to face one of the most difficult challenges there was, to face Fir'aun, to save Bani Israel, to save those who are being oppressed by an oppressor. So he left from there to, again, to take on this task, a task which we know that at one point, even Musa, he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that, oh Allah, make my brother, give me my brother, my akhi, as wasi, someone who will help me. So this difficult task, as he's leaving and understanding this is a difficult task, Musa, he tells his family, he says, wait, I nastu nara. I see a fire. Again, because Musa, when he left with his family, it was just him and his wife, and they were traveling, and it was dark. They didn't have fire, nor did they have food. So he says, wait, maybe, there's a fire there somewhere. Maybe I'll anastu naran la'alli atikum minha biqabasin. Perhaps I'll bring some of this fire back so that, again, we can have a fire, we can stay warm, we can have some sort of comfort. Aw ajidu inda nari huda, or I will find some sort of guidance by this fire. That there will be something there that maybe some people, or maybe some being that we can get some guidance. Okay, where should we go in order to get some sustenance, to have some comfort? So what the Prophet Musa said, when he saw the fire from a distance, he says, in it there's uns. And that comfort or that tranquility may be something that they will gain some worldly comfort from. Ati minha qabasan, minha qabasa. So I will bring some of this fire back, and again, we'll stay warm. We'll have comfort. Or there's some sort of guidance that I can gain from them, from this fire. So this is what uns is. And Imam Sadiq alayhi wasalam is giving us a form. He says that al-uns fi thalath. That when we are dealing with things in this world, he says we should take peace and tranquility and comfort and companionship in three things. The first, he says, az-zawjatul muwafiqah. I'm going to explain these in detail so that I'll translate it first. So the first is an agreeable wife. The second, he says, al-walad al-bar. Al-walad al-bar. A righteous child. And the third, a Sadiq al-musafi, which we can translate as a righteous friend. But the slight difference between the righteous child, al-bar, al-musafi. Musafi means that there's a interaction between yourself and that friend. And we'll explain that as we begin to, explain that particular point. Salawat. So the first, az-zawjatul muwafiqah. What is this? And of course, many may think, oh, yes, I should have an agreeable wife. That means that, yes, when, if I come home from, or better yet, the better term of this, az-zawjatul muwafiqah, is an agreeable spouse, because sometimes it can be used also for a male as well, zawj, not necessarily feminine. An agreeable spouse. So some may think that, oh yeah, if I'm out working hard and I come back home, my meal should be cooked, or or if my parents come and visit, my wife should fix the food for the parents. And again, I'm saying this because I deal with this. And sometimes it creates the conflict within the family. So, oh, the wife is working so hard in the house doing this and that. And then if it creates the conflict, if she decides, oh, you know what, I'm not going to do all of these things. Then it creates a conflict between husband and wife, and the husband saying, oh, you know what, my wife is not doing this, and she's not fixing the food, and this and that. The first thing I say, listen, go read the hukuk, the rights that a husband has over the wife, the rights that a wife has over the husband. And you'll find that those things are not there. Those rights that have been outlined in Islam, they are bare bones. You can literally count them on your hands and your fingers. That what rights does a husband have over his wife, and what rights does a wife have over her husband? And there's a reason why they're bare bone. Those rights deal with what is obligatory, those obligations that they have towards each other. Everything beyond that is, yes, what they come to agree upon, how they begin to build their family and their lifestyle. But if one simply goes according to what those bare bones are, trust me, neither side will be happy. Because they'll say, oh, yes, I'm fulfilling my obligation and duty to you. So, for example, the husband says, well, I have to provide food, clothing, and shelter, and I make sure that there's food in the house. But I'm not going to sit down and eat with you or eat with family. Is it obligatory? No. Then the wife says, okay, fine. You know what? You put the food in the house. Great. I'm going to cook only for myself. I'm not cooking for the children, nor am I cooking for you. Is she fulfilling her right, her duty? Yes. Will that be a happy household? Absolutely not. Both sides are fulfilling their duty. The man brought the food in. The woman is only cooking for herself. And she's being obedient to her husband. Okay, again, he's providing all of the hukuk, all of the rights. Okay, well, no, I won't go outside to work. And hey, okay, I won't do that. But I don't have to cook. Not for you, my husband, nor for my children. In fact, the wife could say, you know what? I'll cook for you guys, but you have to pay me. Is she entitled to do that? Absolutely. But will that household be happy? Absolutely not. So when the wife, she goes above and beyond her bare minimum of duties and responsibility, again, the husband himself should be doing the same thing. Go above and beyond. Oh, well, my dear, you don't have to cook tonight. Let's go out and eat. Or, hey, sometimes I'm going to cook. So brothers, sharpen your skills. And there's no shame in cooking. I'm telling you, my brother, he's a chef, actually. He's a darn good chef. So no one will be happy living simply by those bare bones. A person has to go above and beyond. And it is a good duty, it's a good practice that as husband and wife that we learn about what those hukuk are, what those bare minimums are, and then so that way we understand one another and appreciate each other for fulfilling their Islamic duty and responsibility towards us. And then realize that, oh, beyond this, my husband, he's going beyond this. Even like, again, sometimes from some women I hear, oh, well, my husband, he's not giving me money every month. He gets his paycheck and he gives me nothing. Does he have to do that? No. As long as he's providing that bare minimum. In fact, even some brothers came and said, oh, you know what? Again, they're looking at some of the applications that happened during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is one thing that one brother came to. He said, you know what? All I have to do is buy my wife a dress in the summer and dress in the winter, right? He says, that's what the Prophet did, and that's what the Prophet, he told his companions to. Just one dress in the summer, one dress in the winter. So that fulfills the part of that duty that the man has, that the wife has over her husband, that he's providing food, clothing, and shelter. Well, clothing, one dress in the summer, one dress in the winter. I said, well, yes, that was for that time. But a person has to see that what is the standard for this time? Is one dress in the summer, one dress in the winter, is that sufficient? Or is there another standard which is normal at this time, which is a minimum? And then what that minimum is, then that's what is obligatory. And that minimum can be assessed by what the wife was used to before the marriage itself. But then we'll see that, again, on the side of women, if your husband, he's going above and beyond that, oh, yes, he's providing that, but then he comes home with gifts sometimes, or sometimes I go shopping and I get this, and you know that, oh, you know what, before I was married, or I didn't get this, or this is not even at that bare minimum standing, it's above and beyond that, then then that means that your wife should show appreciation of that. Why? Because she understands that, oh, well, what is his obligation? And he's fulfilling that obligation and beyond. And when you have that type of understanding of knowing, oh, what is my duty? What is my obligation? And you fulfill that and you go beyond that, then you will find that agreement between spouses. That the first thing that they are agreeing upon is fulfilling their responsibility. And then they're going above and beyond that, and they are appreciating that from one another. Salawat. And this is something we find in also the lifestyle of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afsalatu wasalam. When we look at the life of Imam Sadiq alayhi afsalatu wasalam, we see that his wife Hamida al-Barbariya, that he would give her this name. He called her al-Musaffat, al-Musaffat. And we can understand that how is she agreeable in this sense, that even by the name that Imam Sadiq, he would call her by, enduring Musaffat. Or Misfat means that someone who is, or their life is based upon righteousness and purity. That their life is based upon, again, Islam. That he would give her this name, Al-Musaffat. Someone who is pure. Someone, again, it's almost equivalent, and when we think of that verse, the ayat here, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ أَن يُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. اللهم صل على. So, Musaffat is a synonym of tathir. And this is what he would call his wife, that she is mutahhara. Call her by that name, Musaffat. Or if we look at it in another way, misfatu, that person who purifies things, that person who, again, her life is a life of purity, a life that's based on the Quran, a life that's based on the Sunnah of Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. And just to save time, we'll go to that second thing which Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he is saying that we need in our life in order to have that calm and tranquility after dealing with the challenges of this life and this world, is waladun bar, a righteous child. A righteous child that has these qualities that we understand from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afsalatu wasalam, that righteous child is one who will pray for their parents in their lifetime and even in death. That righteous child who will pray and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness for their parents during their lifetime and also in their death, and especially in their death. This is what waladun bar is. But of course, in order to produce that waladun bar, is that means that the parents also have to instill those values of Islam in their children. And not simply, oh, well, we'll send our children off to the Islamic school, the madrasa, one day a week. Yes, that is only an insistence, it's helping. But that is not the beginning and all. Yes, send them to the madrasa, but also embody Islam in your lifestyle, in your home. That your children see Islam practiced in your home. They see that relationship between husband and wife, that zawjatul muwafiqah. Again, based on fulfilling the obligations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put forth for the husband and wife, each spouse, but in also going above and beyond that and appreciating one another. When the child lives in such an environment, such a household, yes, they will come out to be righteous children. They see their parents praying. They see their parents fasting. They see their parents fulfilling those responsibilities that they must do. They have a walking, breathing, living example before them in their home. Not just simply on the weekend school, and then they come home and that environment is not Islamic. or that environment is one that is toxic. Because then that would not produce that child who is righteous. And God forbid it produces that child which Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, he classifies as walid as-su. So walid as-su, the, you say, irreligious or unrighteous child, the evil child or the wicked or wretched child. He says that type of child, yahdimu sharaf wa yashinul salaf. Yahdimu sharaf, it destroys the honor and nobility of a household. And likewise, it disgraces the ancestors. Yashin salaf. And I just want to point this out, that how Imam Ali alayhi salatu, he expresses this, that child who is not righteous, walid su. He says, yahdimul sharaf, removes the honor from that family. Wa yashinu salaf. Shane. Same word that Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu, he uses when he tells those who follow the Ahlul Bayt. He says, Kunu zayna lana, wa la takunu shayna lana. In other words, Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu in this hadith, when he tells us, Kunu zayna lana, wa la takunu shayna lana, he's considering us almost as if we are his awlad. Of course, if we're not related to Ahlul Bayt, we're not related to them by blood, but by spirit, by ruh, by iman. We're related to them. And this is why he says, don't disgrace this household. La takunu shayna lana. Don't disgrace this household. But rather be kunu zaynan lana. Be an ornament of attraction and beauty for us, for this household of Ahlul Bayt. That we say that, oh yes, I'm following Ahlul Bayt. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah Aliyun waliyullah kunu zayna lana. Be an honor, a symbol of honor for Ahlul Bayt. Not a symbol of dishonor and disgrace for Ahlul Bayt. That we say, oh yes, we follow Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu, we follow Ahlul Bayt. But then our actions are contrary to the Quran, contrary to the Sunnah of Rasulullah, contrary to the Sunnah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. So in order to gain that comfort and that peace of mind when dealing with all of the things that we deal with in this world, have that agreeable spouse, zawjatun muwafaqa, wa walad al-bar. And the third thing, as the Imam says, he says, as-sadiqul musafi. And what is this? Sadiqul musafi. Sadiqul musafi, as I said, that it comes, al-musafi comes from a root sifa, to be pure. As Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu, he called his wife, Hamida, called her al-musaffa. Musaffa, one who is pure, one who's purified. So even in our friendship, as Imam Sadiq is saying, he says that friend, that Sadiq, should be al-musafi, one who is righteous, one who is pure, one who is striving to be righteous and pure. And not only striving himself, al-musafi, there's a reciprocal interaction that is alluded to in this particular word in Arabic, meaning that that person is righteous himself, striving to follow the Quran and Ahlul Bayt, but also reminding you to follow the Quran and Ahlul Bayt. This should be our companionship. This should be our friend. That friend, as Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, he defines, he says, as-sadiq. What is a sadiq? What is a friend? He says, man kana nahiyan an al-dhulmi wal-udwan, mu'inan al-birri wal-ihsan. A friend is someone who prevents and forbids and hinders you from being oppressive or being antagonistic towards other. ناهيا عن الظلم والعدوان. معينا, and he is someone who is helping you. He or she is someone who is helping you. معينا على البر والإحسان, helping you to do righteousness, helping you to do good, encouraging you to do good. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, تعاونوا على البر والتقوى. He says, help one another to be righteous. Help one another to be God conscious in your actions, in your choice in life. This is al-Sadiq al-Musafi. And if we have these three things, a spouse who is muwafiq, agreeable. And as we mentioned, agreeable to what? Agreeable to Islam and our deen, and encouraging us, just as we are encouraging them, to fulfill their responsibilities and their duties before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and going above and beyond that. If we have a righteous child that who is also, again, who is supporting us, even if they can't support us materially, perhaps in our old age, yes, they will support us materially. When we can't do things, they'll help us out physically. But they are there to support us, even spiritually. They're praying for us, praying for our forgiveness, praying for our success. And that friend who is encouraging us to do right and discouraging us and dissuading us from doing wrong. That if we have these things, whatever life throws at us, whatever difficulties and challenges we face in the world, then we will have al-uns. We will have tranquility. We will have that support and backing that we need to deal with anything in life. This is one of the beautiful lessons that Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi hafizatu wassalam gives us. And if we look at the life of Imam Sadiq, he had all of these. The agreeable wife and Hamida al-Musaffa, the righteous child, of course, and Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi salatu wassalam. And also those companions, al-Musafi. Of course, there was no companion who could remind the Imam, or at least on that level, because the Imam was always reminding everyone else. But at least he had those companions who he can look towards and see that, yes, that they are following that advice. They are striving to live that life like Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Among those individuals was one companion who's mentioned in the Maqtal. And the accounts of the martyrdom of Ahlul Bayt. This companion, perhaps also a student of Imam Sadiq, learning from the Imam. He states that after the Imam had been poisoned by Mansur al-Dawaniqi, the Imam was in a state that over a few days that he was going in and out of consciousness. He said, so I went to visit the Imam. Imam Sadiq, who, again, this Imam who is ma'soom, this individual who is like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So much so like Rasulullah, and walking in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that among the accounts we have is that on several occasions, Mansur al-Dawaniqi, he wanted to martyr the Imam. He wanted to kill the Imam. He would call Imam Sadiq to his house, to his mansion, and before the Imam showed up, he had told his guard, he says that when he shows up, he says, give me, or secretly hand me the sword or the spear, and then I will kill the Imam. I will kill Ja'far ibn Muhammad. But Mansur himself, he stated on several occasions, he said that he wanted to do this, but what stopped him He said that when he looked at Imam Sadiq, he would see Rasulullah sallallahu. At times he would see Rasulullah standing in front of Imam Sadiq. He says, and because of that, he could not muster up the courage to kill the Imam in such a way. So this is why he sent poisoned grapes to the Imam. So this companion of Imam Sadiq, he says that when I went to visit the Imam and I saw him in this state, going in and out of consciousness, from time to time saying something, even in that state of his ailment, advising us, advising the ummah, telling them on one occasion that man istakhaffa bis-salat la yanalu shafa'atina, that person who takes their salat lightly, not that they don't pray, that they simply take their salat lightly, they will not receive our shafa. So the Imam was in the state, he was going in and out of consciousness, but at the same time still teaching and educating us. This individual says, Bakait. He says, I begin to cry. Begin to cry that he's losing this Imam, this great teacher, this symbol of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi. He said at one moment as the Imam, he came out of his state of unconsciousness, he looked at me crying and he asked, لأي شيء تبكي? He said, oh my companion, what is making you cry? What are these tears that are coming from your eyes? He said that I responded to Imam Sadiq, ألا أبكي وأراك على هذه الحالة. He says, how can I not cry when I see my Imam in this state, when I see my Imam going in and out of consciousness, when I see my Imam who's being affected by the poison? How can I not cry when my Imam is in this state? He said the response of Imam Sadiq was this, that when he said that he was crying because of this reason, Imam told him, لا تفعل فإن المؤمن تعرض كل خير إن قطع أعضاؤه كان خيرا له. Subhanallah. The Imam says, don't cry for me in this state. He says, because whatever happens to the mu'min, that whatever happens, whatever Allah decrees to happen for that mu'min, then it is good for that mu'min. And the Imam, he gave the example. He says, even if the limbs of that mu'min was cut, then as khayran lahu. What was the Imam indicating here? That even if the limbs of the mu'min was cut, that it would be khayran lahu. The Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, he was being martyred by means of poison. But of course, he's saying that, look at some of the other mu'mineen, that their death was not the death of poison, that they were martyred on the battlefield. The one that we know that was martyred on the battlefield, the grandfather of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, Imam al-Hussein, that upon the plains of Karbala, Imam Hussein, he will be left alone when his companions had been martyred. Imam Hussein will be shot with an arrow in his chest, a three-pronged arrow that was poison. But you see that it was not enough simply to poison the Imam. It was not enough simply to shoot the Imam with arrows. They decapitated the Imam. That the limbs of the Ahlul Bayt, the limbs of the companions of Imam Hussein, that they were severed. And Imam Sadiq, he's saying that, listen, that whatever happens to the mu'min, whatever sacrifice that the mu'min makes, whatever sacrifice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts and Allah decrees for that mu'min, khayran lahu. And so Imam Sadiq, he's telling his companion at this moment, he says, don't cry. The Imam who is now Shaheed, Imam Sadiq, Shaheed ho gaya. Imam Sadiq, Masmoom ho gaya. Tamam Medina. Tamam Medina, Matem Mete, that when the whole of Medina was now marching, the Imam could no longer stop the crying. And among those tears that were shed for Imam Sadiq on that day, on a night like this, was the tears of the Imam Musa Kazem. Janaze shusite shudas payatasar. The janaza, the body of Imam Sadiq, was washed. It was given its ghusl by Imam Musa Kadhim, washed from head to toe, shrouded in the death shroud. Ashkadi de Musa bin Ja'far. And as the Imam Musa Kadhim, he was washing his father, as he was burying his father, the tears flowed from the eyes of Imam Musa Kadhim. The tears flowed from the eyes of Imam Musa Kadhim. At times, when he was washing the body, he would see the marks on the body of Imam Sadiq. From when Imam Sadiq, he used to carry bags of bread and feed the poor in the city of Medina. زي أشكدي دي موسى بن جعفر وويلا as in Uzma. Everyone was mourning the Shahadat of Imam Sadiq in the city of Medina. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. اللهم بحق هذا المجلس الصادق اغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا وقضي حوائجنا واشفي مرضانا وارحم أمواتنا وعجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان وجعلنا من أعوانه وانصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه وتحت لوائه بحق محمد وآله الطاهرين. متوجه الزيارة. السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا صاحب سفينة النجاة، السلام عليك يا محمد بن عبد الله ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا بضعة رسول الله، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين وقرة عين الرسول ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين ويعسوب الدين علي بن أبي طالب وسي رسول الله ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أمير، السلام عليك يا إمام المتقين أيها الحسن بن علي أيها المجتبى ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك أيها الشهيد بكربلاء وسبت النبي الرحمة. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على الأئمة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. السلام على علي بن حسين زين العابدين. السلام على محبب بن علي باقر علم النبيين. السلام على جعفر بن محمد الصادق الأمين. السلام على موسى بن جعفر الكاظم. السلام على علي بن موسى الرضا المرتضى راض بالقدر والقضاء. السلام على محمد بن علي الجوار التقيم. السلام على السلام على علي بن محمد الهادي النقيم. السلام على الحسن بن علي العسكري. السلام على حجة بن الحسن القائم المنتظر المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل الله تعالى مخرجه وظهوره، وجعل الله من أعوانه وأنساره والمستشهدين بين يديه وتحت لوائه. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة وموضع الرسالة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Please recite Surah Fatiha for all of the marhum or marhumin from among the mu'mineen and mu'minat, especially the marhum Mahbub Kadhimi, son of Manzoor Kadhimi, and also Fatima Ma'suma Kumaraji. Al-Fatiha ma'a salawat. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Thank you everyone for signing up and attending, and those who are watching online. So inshallah, we'll continue with these in-person and online programs, and we'll apologies for the technical issues. We'll keep on working and making this better. Thank you so much.